Hi everyone, this is Trish Kendall, your host for the Choose and Become interview series. People around the world ask me to share more of my journey to enduring success, more stories, more of my lessons, more of my experiences. There's only so much I can share during an inspirational speech or while facilitating a workshop or even through blogs. So here you go. In these Trish Kendall Speaks episodes, I give you short, impromptu, candid, raw me. Come along with me as I continue my journey to enduring success. Hi everyone, this is Trish Kendall with the Trish Kendall Speaks episode. I was delivering an inspirational session last week, and at the end of these sessions, I typically always have a Q&A, short, long, whatever it is, and questions that I'm asked always end up prompting me to be thinking about and what I end up recording with Trish Kendall Speaks. And so one of the questions, which is a pretty common one, is how did I share in these inspirational sessions that I was sexually abused as a child by my father for 7 years. And a natural question that comes up is and I'm married now, happily married, 15 years, Joe and we have an amazing family and 2 incredible children. And, we have this perfect, imperfect life. And so the question is, how did I get through the trauma, and how did I end up falling in love with a man? How about that? Let's just make it like pretty basic there with the question. And I never have the time or the space to really get into that question. But what I answer in those inspirational speeches or workshops is that it took a lot of time. I had a lot of boundaries, and it took a lot of help. And then eventually with Joe, I married him when I was 36. My mom would always say, it took Joe's patience and perseverance. So yes, all of those things. But this question, along with the other night I was driving home, I can't remember where I was driving home from. I must have taken Lily or Sam somewhere because I was by myself at night in the car driving home, and I was listening to Amazon Music, and my likes that came up were a blues station, which blues is my favorite music. And I will bring these 2 things together, that question and blues music together. Little Johnny Lee Hooker there. I know, but I love it. I love blues music. And when I was, I'm going to put this in the background a little bit. So I'm driving home and I turn on Amazon Music, and this My Like station comes up, and I start listening to blues. And really the song that came up was Stevie Ray Vaughan. When I was 15 years old, so the abuse stopped with my dad when I was 13. My sister and her husband actually took me in when I was 15. And then they intervened again when I was 20, which is the other story about my drug addiction. But when I was 15, my sister and her husband became my legal guardians. And I, as you know, if you've watched the other Trish Kendall Speaks episode, Lost Love, at that point I had fallen in love with Alex with a Y. And I had been forced away from Alex. Alex identified as a boy, but was born a girl. And I was forced away from her. She had gone to jail. It was just a horrible time for me. I was with my sister and her husband, and I had zero interest in guys, negative interest in guys, but I had had a very wonderful experience with Alex. And so when I was 15, I was a hostess at Mrs. Turner's, and I became friends with a girl who was 2 years older than me and her boyfriend, and the 2 of them. And we started hanging out together and spending time together. And he introduced me to Stevie Ray Vaughan. He loved music. He was a guitarist. So he introduced me to blues music. And my friendship with them turned into an intimate relationship, primarily with her, although there were some dabblings with him in the way that worked for me, which is like, I don't care, how do I explain it? my connection with guys was very much like the physical aspect of it didn't matter to me. That didn't bother me or set me off or anything, but I would not be intimate. No waking up, no holding hands, no anything that was even remotely close to caring and loving and all of that stuff. Wanted to have nothing to do with that. But with girls, I would. And so I experienced a relationship with her that was kind and caring and loving, and he was along for whatever. And so that was my first real experience with I stopped recording because I wasn't 100% sure where I wanted to go from here. When I record these, I have these voices in my head about how raw and candid and transparent I will be. And the thing that holds me back the most is thinking about if my daughter Lily or any of her friends ever at some point down the road ever get their hands on something. So I want my community and people that follow me to understand my hesitancy sometimes to pull back isn't about not wanting to share and be fully candid and raw, but it is about protecting in my way the hearts and the minds of the younger girls who I care for so much. And I know that there's a balance there because I also want younger girls to understand and know, and those that aren't in my world to know that I hear you. For those that have gone through something traumatic, such as I have, or have experienced something that has created shame and guilt at no fault of your own, but that you carry around that shame and guilt, and that you perhaps have experienced something that then triggered your choices down the road. And so I made choices based on being sexually abused, and the abuse was not violent, and the a complicating factor of the abuse is that my dad loved me and I loved him, and he showed me ordinary acts of daily love that you would think and want your parent to show you. I mean, he taught me so much. So this video is not about that. but it adds to the complexity of the choices that I made later. So when I said a few minutes ago that it was okay for me to be intimate and caring and loving with a girl, but not a boy, it's because of that. So I am going to connect these dots. If you will just stick with me, I promise you I'm connecting these dots of blues music and questions that I get, and the question I get about how did I fall in love with the man. And so for purposes of this Trish Kendall Speaks, the experience that I ended up having with this boyfriend and girlfriend, I was the third wheel. I was the third leg of the stool, if you will, with them. And it allowed me a bit of safety to explore sexually with him because I knew there would be no intimacy. The two of them were in love. And so I was just coming in and participating and expanding the relationship that they had. Eventually, so this was not the only relationship that I endeavored in this way. It was the first of 3 over the next probably 4 years. So that was the first. There was another one with another boyfriend and girlfriend and the same type of scenario. And then the third were with 2 women and in the same type of scenario. In each of these scenarios, the relationship was between these 2, and I entered in, and that was what I wanted because I didn't want to be obligated to anyone. I didn't want to wake up to anyone. I didn't want anyone to tell me that they loved me. I certainly wasn't going to say I love you to anyone. You know what? Most of the time, I didn't even want to kiss. So I created these situations where I would be able to dabble in and experiment with the boundaries that I had, and like push my boundaries a little bit, both physically and emotionally. And that allowed me to do that. Now, in each of these three cases, what ended up happening is one of the two people, and sometimes both, would end up saying, I love you, and I'm in love with you, or I want to be with you. And I'm like, I'm out. When that would happen, I was like, I'm out. So I carried around this sense of not wanting to be loved and not wanting to love, and my choice around not giving and not receiving love. And that carried through for decades until I finally chose to give and to receive. And I will share more of that next time. For now. Oh, and here's the other thing with Stevie Ray Vaughan. So Stevie Ray Vaughan was the first blues artist that I was introduced to. And then I didn't even realize like the blues artist that would be singing as Stevie Ray Vaughan was playing the guitar. And then I finally learned there was Buddy Guy and Muddy Waters and B.B. King. And so my husband and I now, every Friday night, unless it's below 40 degrees, we sit outside with wine. He loves scotch, and we listen to blues music. And I love it. Thank you for joining my journey. I will pick this up for another episode, but I need to hang up now because my son's school just called me. So I got to call them back. Choose and become.